a 5-second glance. That's what separates living from dying in Dota 2. A flick of the eyes to a tiny box in the corner of the screen, then back to the fight. Miss that glance, and an enemy hero appears out of nowhere and ends your game. Every Dota player has felt this. The sinking dread after a bad death, replaying it, realizing you never checked the map. But here's the strange part. Professional players check that map constantly, almost unconsciously. What happens to a brain that does this for thousands of hours? This isn't really about Dota. It's about attention, how it's trained, stretched, and sometimes broken by a genre built entirely around watching two things at once. Today, we ask what the Minimap actually does to the mind that stares at it. Dota 2 hands you one hero, one camera, and one small window on everything else happening on a map that is enormous. 10 players, 5 lanes, invisible enemies, and a clock that never stops. Your eyes are on your hero, fighting for every last hit on a creep. Meanwhile, your team could be dying 2 screens away. The game is asking you to hold 2 visual worlds in your head at once, one detailed, one peripheral. Psychologists call this working memory load, juggling multiple moving pieces of information without writing any of it down. Good Dota players are running a constant mental simulation. Where is the enemy jungler? Where was he last seen? Where could he be now? This trains something specific. Your useful field of view, the zone where your brain can pick up meaningful information without moving your eyes. In Dota, that zone has to stretch to include a flashing icon in the very corner of your vision. Every glance also demands a decision fast. Rotate to help. Keep farming. Retreat. There is no pause button, and hesitation itself is a choice with real consequences that can cost your team the game. Players even spend hard-earned gold to physically extend that vision, placing wards in the fog of war to buy themselves a few extra seconds of warning. The map itself becomes a resource worth paying for. And none of this happens alone. 5 players must translate what they see on their own screen into words fast enough for teammates to act on, coordinating pushes, calling missing enemies, sharing one shifting picture of the battlefield. All that mental strain is exhausting. But strain, applied the right way, is also how the brain grows stronger over time. And the specific muscle Dota trains has a name psychologists have studied for decades. Research on fast-paced action games consistently finds improvements in visual attention, the ability to track multiple moving objects and notice new ones appearing at the edges of sight. Dota, with its constant map checking, is an extreme version of that training. There's also the pull of flow, that state where challenge and skill line up so precisely that hours vanish. A close, coordinated Dota game, where every glance and call lands right, is flow in its purest competitive form. Climbing from a fumbling newcomer who never checks the map to someone who reads it instinctively is a genuine competence gain. That earned mastery builds self-efficacy, the belief that effort produces results, a belief that doesn't stay locked inside the game. Beyond raw attention, Dota trains cognitive flexibility, rapidly switching between different modes of thinking, from precise mechanical execution to broad strategic planning, sometimes within the same 3 seconds, without ever fully leaving either one behind. Here's where it gets interesting for life outside the game. Some of the same researchers who study action game attention have also looked at driving, because driving asks your brain to do something eerily similar to checking a Dota minimap. A driver has a small mirror carrying critical peripheral information while the main view stays dead ahead. Structurally, that's a windshield playing the role of the screen and a mirror playing the role of the minimap. Studies on habitual action game players have found faster hazard perception, quicker recognition of a pedestrian stepping off a curb, a car merging unexpectedly, a shape appearing where it shouldn't. That's the minimap habit, repurposed for asphalt instead of ancient creeps. This isn't a license to text and drive. The transfer is narrow, better at noticing sudden visual changes, not better at every driving skill. But narrow gains, in something as high stakes as attention on the road, still matter. Back inside the game, that trained eye becomes pattern recognition. Veteran players see a missing enemy icon and instantly infer intent, a gank building somewhere off-screen. the way a chess player reads a board state instead of individual pieces. There's an emotional return too. Managing repeated near misses and reversals without falling apart is a form of practiced emotional regulation, teaching the nervous system to stay functional under pressure instead of flooding with panic. And when it works, 5 strangers become a coordinated unit sharing one mental map, a small but real experience of belonging and shared competence that keeps people coming back long after the mechanics stop feeling novel. None of this comes free, though. The same design that sharpens attention can just as easily hijack it, and Dota's costs are exactly as specific as its benefits. Ranked matchmaking is a variable reward loop wearing a competitive mask. You never know if the next match will be a crushing loss or a euphoric climb, and that unpredictability is exactly what keeps a mind hooked on pulling the lever one more time. A single match can run over 40 minutes, and Dota famously punishes players who leave early with lasting penalties. That locks in a form of sunk cost the moment you queue. Once committed, walking away feels costlier than staying, even in a miserable losing game. Losing a lane early can trigger tilt, a frustration spiral where anger narrows attention exactly when clear thinking matters most. Ironically, the game's biggest cognitive demand, calm decision-making, collapses first when players need it most. The same voice chat built for life-saving callouts also carries blame, insults, and public shaming after every mistake. For some players, that social cost outweighs every cognitive benefit the game has to offer. Ranked medals also fuse with identity in ways planar games rarely manage. A bad losing streak can start to feel like a verdict on your intelligence rather than a bad run of variance. A distortion, not a fact. And then there's the ordinary cost that never makes it into any patch notes. The one more game that becomes 3, the rank climb eating into sleep, the dinner missed because a comeback felt too close to abandon. Some heavy players even report a kind of leftover hypervigilance. Eyes darting to corners of rooms, unease when they can't see what's happening just out of view, an echo of a habit trained for a battlefield that no longer exists. So after all that, the working memory, the peripheral training, the flow states, and the tilt spirals, what's the actual return on 500 hours spent glancing at a tiny corner of screen? For players with the patience to lose badly before improving, the payoff is real. Sharper divided attention, faster hazard detection, genuine mastery, and a social bond built on shared awareness are not small returns for time spent. For players prone to tilt, for those chasing rank as self-worth, or for anyone whose sleep and relationships are already fragile, the same game becomes a compulsion loop dressed up as self-improvement, taking far more than it gives back. The healthiest investment strategy is simple. Decide your session length before you queue. Not after a bad game convinces you one more will fix it. And treat every urge to keep playing past that limit as data about the game's design, not a verdict on your willpower. That 5-second glance that opened this video was never just about winning a match. It was a rehearsal for attention, for patience, for noticing what's coming before it arrives. What you do with that trained eye once you log off is the real final score.